Over the last year and a half, we've all been challenged, whether it's working from home, homeschooling kids, or struggling with sickness. Every single one of us had to adjust. Now, imagine being the leader of an organization with almost 700 employees. Today, we are joined by Medi-Share executives to discuss how they made decisions during the pandemic, lessons learned, and takeaways for you to apply in your leadership role. Feel free to post questions or leave a comment in the chat. Facilitating today's discussion is Evelio Silvera, Medi-Share's Vice President of Communications and Government Affairs.
Welcome and thanks for being with us. My name is Evelio Silvera. I have the honor of serving in the Medi-Share community as the Vice President of Communication and Government Affairs. And I have three wonderful guests with me today, and we're going to look forward to a great conversation about crisis and leadership and the way forward. And joining me today, I have our Medical Director, Dr. Alesia Greene. Thank you, Dr. Greene, for being here with us today. Our Chief Executive Officer, Scott Reddig, and our Chief Operations Officer, Brandon Harvath. Thank you, all three of you, for being here. It's a real treat when we get a chance to spend some time with the Medi-Share community, our members, and those of you that are curious about what does it mean to be a part of the Medi-Share community. Well, today we want to talk a little bit retrospectively before we talk a little bit about moving forward. And it's all about how do we deal with crisis? How we here at Medi-Share dealt with the crisis of this pandemic. You know, the COVID-19 pandemic certainly has posed some unique challenges, particularly for leaders over the last year and a half. Remember, there's no playbook for a pandemic. Decisions were made on the fly. And we continue to pivot regularly as the circumstances and needs of our employees and our members change. But Medi-Share is, well, we believe, and we think you'll agree, the most trusted healthcare sharing ministry. We facilitate healthcare cost sharing for tens of thousands of families, so we simply can't just drop our standards when a pandemic disrupts our world. And we didn't. So today, we're joined by these senior leaders at ChristianCare Ministry that help administer the Medi-Share program. And I'm glad we have an opportunity to stop and talk about what the last year and a half has meant. And so last March, as leaders, some already here at ChristianCare Ministry and Medi-Share, and some that are new to join us, and our COO Brandon, we were met with an unprecedented challenge when the pandemic hit. How would you describe your leadership approach during a time like that? And Scott, I'm curious to have you start us off today.
Yeah, thanks, Evelio. I would probably start by emphasizing something you said, which is there was no playbook other than the Bible, which
Right.
we are guided by here. And I think what I sensed through our team when we were trying to figure out what to do in response to the pandemic, we really were reminding ourselves the Lord's got this.
Right.
And we said that to each other a lot. But it was important that we stay calm, that I personally stay calm, so that we had employees wondering what was going to happen. We had our board wondering what was going to happen. So exuding calm, but really just putting our head down and be problem solvers was a big part of the approach that we took, and a lot of communication, communicating to our board, communicating to our employees. We've been emphasizing transparency in town halls, and we continue to do it, answering whatever questions was on their mind. So I'd say that was a big part of how we navigated those first couple months.
When you March, you got to send people home, you've got to move to remote. I know that it was within, I think, 48 hours that the staff moved remote. So Scott, Dr. Greene, talk to us a little bit about that decision, that implementation, and you alluded to this, Scott. Maybe share with the audience, what role did prayer play as you're walking through those things?
Well, I'll start, but we both, let's just be honest, we were benefited by some hard work that had happened within our IT shop, our IT leadership that we benefited by. We, unlike a lot of organizations, we were actually able to move to a remote arrangement for 95% plus of our employees within, as you said, 48 hours. Wow. And kudos to our IT leadership that put us in that position. But still there was a little bit of prayer that was required to just make sure we could work through that and keep serving the members, but we did. And it's so ironic because even today we're still heavily remote, and just we showed that we had prepared for that moment well. So I don't know if you'd add.
Service to the member, there's confusion as to how deadly is this virus? What do I do? Where do I go? What roles do I follow? And the expectation is that their healthcare sharing community is going to be there for them. And so, of course, we have to be operational to be able to do that. But Dr. Greene, as a medical director, what steps did you take, and what was the importance of that active communication, not just with our employees as we made the remote transition, but with our members when these are the kinds of times when they need us most?
That's right. Well, I just would say, obviously pandemic, once in a 100-year event. And here at Medi-Share, just like in the community, those early days, we were hungry for information.
Yeah.
What is going to happen? How is this going to unfold? I mean, prayer is a big part of it. Again, preparation, I think, as well. And I think for me, my role, both with our employees as well as our members, is really just to provide information and knowledge as I knew it, right? So we had a COVID-like virus before. Most people, it was a passing news story. So there was some familiarity and just trying to draw information that was valid, right? Lots of misinformation from the very beginning, and a lot of fear really about what does this mean? What is going to happen? So I think just trying to draw on prior knowledge, medical knowledge and experience, as well as some of the planning that we did, just to remind everybody, hey, we had a plan. Now we're going to dust that off the shelf. We're actually going to execute that plan. And then, again, clear and repetitive communication, I think, because your mind goes a million different places. What about this? What about that? How should I behave in this? And just trying to say, look, it's going to unfold one step at a time. This is what we know today. These are the steps we're taking now based on what we know. And we're going to keep our ears open. We're going to keep, our minds open to what is revealed next. And I think, again, that repetitive communication and providing knowledge as we learned it was really, I think, key into calming people down. And we're human. We all want to jump to the end of the story to know what the conclusion is on the last page of the book.
Right.
But we're still opening, turning the book page by page as we're figuring out what the new normal is.
Yeah. It's interesting. Brandon, like myself, we're newer additions to the leadership team here at Medi-Share and ChristianCare Ministry. So neither you nor I were a part of this organization last March at the outbreak of the pandemic. But what I find fascinating is your background. You were a chief executive for a hospital in Delaware. When you are thrust into this crisis, talk to me about what were the steps you took before arriving here at Medi-Share in your previous experience?
Yeah, I think I'd maybe start by saying very used to and accustomed being surrounded by experts, right? And certainly in the clinical care space, you're never short of experts and specialists.
Yeah.
There aren't many specialists in how to handle global pandemics, right, in times like this. And so I think the one bit I've just been impressed by over the last year and a half is watching so many colleagues and professionals come to the table collaboratively with an innovative spirit and being willing to just say, look, I don't know. I haven't been through this before, but we're all here together for the same cause and we're going to figure it out. And just watching that innovative spirit that I think even our Father, right, as we see in God's Word, He's a creative God, right? He's created all of us. He's created this incredible universe. And, sometimes in our sin nature, we want to just take over that and think we have all the answers, right? And it's a little difficult to just admit maybe we don't have the answers. But watching that through this process, I think as a leader was really humbling.
It's fascinating to hear now what different organizations, both secular, in and out of the healthcare and financial services space, how they continue to react to certain things. And there seems to be this great amount of volatility in the reactions, right? You said lots of misinformation from the very beginning. So wisdom on understanding how to parse out what's true and what isn't. And Scott, you reference that we have the Word of God in the Bible as our ultimate playbook for anything and everything. What would you say to the contrast of how this organization, particularly Medi-Share, responded and reacted versus some organizations that we would say are in our space of healthcare and financial services, but are not ministry focused, are not driven by that ultimate playbook? What's the real differences and the impact to members and employees when you allowed yourself to be guided by the winds of man, if you will?
I really appreciate you asking this question, because I think this is our advantage as an employer. If you just think about what all of us as just human beings were going through, it isn't just economic worry. It's health, it's spiritual, right? And the fact that we can very openly offer prayer service, prayer vigils, chaplains, one-on-one, spiritual counseling to our employees. We had a prayer service for our members who, came online and joined us early in the pandemic, and have been so open about the spiritual part of this. In fact, we've continued to track statistics that our spiritual development folks, our spiritual director, Jerry Lawrence, and his chaplain staff have just had this huge uptick in interest in the service that they can provide, and it's stayed there through this pandemic. But I would just say to a secular business leader, even if you can't talk about your faith, find a way to tap into that, because that's just how you come around your employees to make it a great place to work. And what is just so gratifying for us, I think, as an employer, is in that window from beginning of the pandemic to a year later, we did an employee engagement survey and compared it to the one we did before, and the engagement scores went up by a huge amount, which says, wow, even in a pandemic, we're finding a way to connect with our employees. And remember, they're not all here in the building.
Right.
They're all over in homes and wherever. So I just think it is our advantage to, be a ministry over the other kinds of employers.
What a wonderful thing to be free to be our whole selves. Not only in what we'll call our private lives, but in our public and professional lives as well. And Dr. Greene, I know that we offer prayer here at the end of every phone call with a member, but we also offer it at the end of every phone call with a provider. And so talk to me a little bit about the stories from our care management team, our provider services team, and the importance of just ending that phone call and not missing the opportunity, particularly during the last year and a half, to simply pray with the person they're on the phone with.
Well, absolutely. I think, a variety of motivations to call into our program, right? Some of it very business related, relating to sharing and payments, those kinds of things. But I'm always, inspired by what our staff delivers to our members when we get stories shared with us that providers always offered the opportunity to pray. We'll be like, well, I can't pray right now, like I'm busy, but I'm going to call back. And they do.
They call back.
They call back because it's such a valuable part of who we are and just the support. Again, the support that prayer gives you beyond, knowledge and all this other stuff. It's that community prayer support of being a part of this program, part of God's family, that we rely on each other in such a meaningful way, in a special way and unique way. So, certainly I could share with you so many stories. I mean, our care managers are helping members certainly over the last, since March of 20 through some significant health issues. There's all the regular health issues and then of course the COVID health issues. And certainly there's that aspect that I just think helps to keep people grounded as they're, dealing with new things and unknown things. So again, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of our community. I'm proud of how our members, our providers engage with us in that space. It's exceptional, something I never experienced in 20 plus years of being a physician. So that's special.
You know, what I love about this environment is that we don't just throw around words willy-nilly. This truly is a community, and it's a community that we're committed not just to our employees and providers, but to our members as well. I think that prayer undergirds the relational connection that we seek to make, to be there in that time of need, and to offer, as you said, the one true solution that we know can cut through any of the problems and pains that anyone's experiencing. So as we take a moment to look back a little bit, is there something that you learned in just the last few months that you are applying today and seek to apply into the future? And Brandon, I want to start with you because I think it's very unique to be able to bring that experience and the viewpoint that you have, and now coming in as our COO for ChristianCare Ministry. What is it that dealing with the pressures of the pandemic, what's the one key takeaway or kind of viewpoint that you're bringing in now to this position for the benefit of this ministry?
Yeah, I think when you consider sort of that war zone, if you will, of the last year and a half that we've all lived through in various ways, right? Not just here at ChristianCare Ministries, but every organization around the world, and personally, individually, as you think about the impact that's had on you. I think, the takeaway for me has been just a reminder. It's amazing what you can accomplish when it doesn't matter who gets the credit. And when you think about, the impact a team can have when you stand back and sometimes just get out of the way, right? And let your teams do the amazing work that they can do. And as a leader, sometimes that comes down to just focusing on removing barriers, right, for those teams, helping them understand that maybe the way we always did things before may not be the way we can do it in the future. And so let's find ways as leaders to proactively remove those barriers for them, right, and just empower our team. So I think that's the one bit I would take away from it. And just an ever-present reminder that, our God is a great God. He clothes even the lilies of the field, right? There's not a sparrow that falls from the sky without him knowing, right? So just having that confidence and knowing we don't have to have fear, right, as we go about our life in things like global pandemics. We can be smart. We can look to God's word for direction and trust that he is going to provide for us.
Scott, I know that one of the overarching characteristics to share with our members and the public at large of your tenure as a CEO here at ChristianCare Ministry has been your attitude towards being very transparent. And it is, there isn't anything that's going on that our employees and our members aren't a part of. Do you believe that transparency served us well during this time? And is there any change that you would make in that sense as we move forward beyond the pandemic?
Well, I do think it served us well. And actually, when I hearken back to the engagement survey, I think that had a lot to do with why the scores went up.
Yeah.
And I say that because when you dig into what the employees were saying to us through that survey, they talked about just having more trust in leadership, more trust in the direction of the organization, more trust that, it was just an open environment that they could, just feel like they knew what was going on. That has been a criticism before. I would just tell you, even though there's definitely risks in just being so wide open, and we get some interesting questions now and then in our town halls, but I at this point, I wouldn't change it. In fact, I would tell you from just a very personal standpoint, it's the thing I look forward to the most in my role, is those town halls, even though I'm very well aware that we could get some zingers here and there. But, we're all in this together. I truly believe we're all leaders. We have a role, but I don't view my role as more significant than that call center representative or the programmer in IT. We're all a part of the body of Christ. And, we all have a part to play to make sure his ministry carries out his will. So I think it's actually, if anything, the experience of the last year has solidified my view that transparency just has to be part of the leadership approach here.
Well, it's a refreshing change because I think when people come to learn about Medi-Share, the Medi-Share program, everything that ChristianCare Ministry does, in providing medical cost sharing, healthcare sharing, I think that the average person thinks, well, I'm used to not knowing a lot of information. I'm used to getting these confusing things. I'm used to being held in the dark. And so you're telling me that you're this transparent with your employees, you're this transparent with your membership, you view it as a community. That's a very different level of expectation. And, I would just say that if you're learning about Medi-Share and ChristianCare Ministry for the first time, that this is what relationship and community truly looks like. And you heard me reference earlier that those are things that we just don't use as words, that we actually mean those things. And it permeates throughout the leadership and everything that we do here. But Dr. Greene, I'm curious, is there something, we talk oftentimes in professional development that there are things that you accelerate doing, that you keep doing, and that you stop doing. Is there anything during this last year and a half that you've come to the conclusion, maybe we should stop doing it? Maybe there's a better way of doing it as we move forward?
Well, I was kind of chuckling because it's our member community who signals to me what we should stop doing or start doing, right? One of the things, again, I'm proud of our members that they just have that communication with us, right? One of the things we never shared in before was telehealth visits. I mean, and I know it's hard for us all now because we've experienced 20 months or so of that's been the standard. Everybody's on a computer screen. But we started getting feedback very early in the pandemic that, hey, we need to start doing this because that's the option now. And again, a big credit to a team, our internal team. I mean, we were getting feedback in various different areas, sharing, asking for new sharing changes to adapt to this new environment we were in. And we were able to collect all that, carry off a member vote, have very good community participation, and we changed the program to meet the needs of the members. So, everything from reminding folks about MD Live and utilizing that from the comfort of their own home to sharing and full out telehealth visits, for specialty care, those kinds of things. So, I think those are just some very quick lessons that we all learned together, and I think the program's better for it today because of that.
So as we're moving forward, prognosticate a little bit with me. Let's have a little fun with our viewers as we go in. These virtual visits and telehealth were a nicety, but now they're a necessity. What are the things on the horizon that you are excited about seeing unfold for, it could be our employees or our providers or our members? And Brandon, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, maybe I'd start in two main areas of Evelio, and I think better access to care really is going to be a fundamental driver to not only our strategy, but I think the needs of our members going forward. So even outside of the world of telehealth, just thinking deeply about how we blow off the barriers, right, of access to care in various areas around the country and with specific specialties and needs as they develop. I think, maybe the other area I would share with you, and not just access to care, but there's continued advancements in technology. That didn't slow down in the midst of the pandemic. If anything, like we saw with our ability to go home, technology has just accelerated greatly. So you think about that world of automation and diagnosis, and I'm really excited about what that might bring to our members in the near future. It wasn't long ago finding an EKG cost you a lot of money, and now you get them for $99 on Amazon, right? So just to give you an example, when you think about that ability to just automate diagnosis in this field and get faster healthcare, right, and greater access.
Scott, what would you say?
I'm excited about what more we can become as ChristianCare Ministry. I mean, the Medi-Share program is just so awesome. It's what we're identified with, but I just think this community can grow by offering some other wellness, financial service types of products for the membership. We've talked internally about more of an outreach flavor to what we do and really becoming hands and feet even more obviously as an employee group, as a membership group and community, even maybe pulling our providers in. And So, when we talk about our vision statement and transforming society, I mean, I think there's something really tangible there that's going to grow.
That's really neat. Dr. Greene.
Well, I think we will continue to have additional learnings from just what we've all been through together over the last 20 months. And maybe I'm old-fashioned, but maybe it just comes down to technology is great, but maybe we've also come to understand the power of prayer and connection with each other. Really what it means to support others in a time of unknown, of sickness, and the resilience we come out with on the other side. Knowing that at the center of it all, the Spirit, God brings us together, and that it's that togetherness which really moves us forward into the next adventure. So I think anything's possible.
When you have a vision statement like ours in this organization, of transforming culture to the biblical model of sharing, there's a lot that's out there that the Lord has for us to do. And I know that that we're excited at what that means. We may not know exactly what it is, but we're excited at the opportunity to be able to serve in bigger ways and in different ways as we lift up and we energize the body of Christ. And what an exciting time to be a part of this community. And so I want to thank you for joining us today, for sharing a little time, from hearing the hearts of these senior leaders here at ChristianCare Ministry and the Medi-Share program. And we would invite you to learn more. If you're not yet a part of this community, well, by golly, we've got room for you. Just visit Medi-Share.com and learn more information on what's best for you to connect with us and our thousands of members across the country. And if you are a member and you've got a question, you've got a comment, you've got a little piece of advice or something you'd like to see us do, well, Dr. Greene made it clear, we're a member-driven community. And so you can also visit Medi-Share.com and leave a comment for you, and someone on our staff will make sure to respond. Thank you for your time. Thank you to the three of you for taking a little time out of the schedule to spend chatting about this pandemic and the wonderful things that God has done. I'll share with those of you watching that in our main conference room, which is called Omni. And it's called Omni because God is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. And so it's the characteristics of the wonderful Lord that we serve. Behind on the main part of the desk is a zoomed in version of a Bible verse, and it's circled, and it says, "But God." And so whenever we face challenges, I just encourage you today and leave you with this: but God. He knows what you need, and He's there to bring you through. Thank you for being a member. Thank you for your time. May you have a blessed rest of your day, and we hope that you'll consider joining our community.